Welcome to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
This guy took a satellite dish, a piece of the dish, off his roof and started cracking into it to see what was inside. And check this out. This is super interesting.
Satellite dish technology that I took off my roof that had been up there. We used the internet through that dish about 10 years ago, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And I'm going to show you, I saved it because one day I was like, I'm going to go into it and I'm going to tear this circuit board apart. And I bet I'm going to find something super interesting. Well, just to show you that that is what's used. See the connector right there? This is the coaxial cable connector that's used in the 5G industry. It's used in this quote unquote satellite industry, and it's used in the cable television industry, of course. So let me just show you this box. This is the brains of that old satellite dish. So you can see here, there's the electronics on the inside. And I'm going to show you something crazy that I uncovered just a few weeks ago when I opened this up. When I opened up this side, look at this. Look at that right there. ISIS with the all-seeing eye right in the satellite equipment. And I looked up that company, ISIS Technology, and they produce satellite technology. And by the way, just so you know, and one day I'm gonna have to come out with this because I've investigated this for many, many years. This quote unquote satellites aren't satellites. They're high altitude drone balloons that are all linked up with each other through laser guidance systems up somewhere between 25 and 50 kilometers in altitude. Now they've got to be above planes. They've got to be above the chemtrail planes and all that, but they are up there and they are balloons, and this company makes the stacks that go up on those balloons that are supposedly satellite equipment. But you can see right there, look at that. Now again, you can see the coaxial cable right there. So this is not having anything to do with cable television. This is not a cable television connector, but it did use the coaxial cable to hook up to the box that came into the house that we used to get our internet through. So they've been watching us. See that? They've been watching us all along. These companies, you should look into these companies that make this equipment. It's like the media. They're all owned by the same people at the very top.
Well, that's probably why they don't shoot down the balloons. They're not spy balloons, they're satellites. So that actually makes way more sense. I've known this for a long time, but I'm hoping more people start to wake up to this. Now, why are they putting Egyptian ISIS symbolism inside of these components? I think I know the reason why, but I mean, it is what it is. If you want to learn more, you go right to this website. I love you all very much, and I hope to see you over there. This is my opinion.
The highest that we've ever gotten with a single-engine aircraft, according to the internet, is about 8.2 kilometers. Other means of flight top out at a much lower altitude, like a paramotor can only go up to about 3 kilometers. It would make sense as to why we've never noticed these things floating around 25 kilometers off the surface of the planet if that's really where they're at. I'm still waiting for the cold hard evidence, like some video footage or something of a homemade rocket or a balloon that it can actually travel up to that height and show us what's floating around at 25 kilometers. And I've certainly seen enough videos on TikTok in the past few months of these satellites falling out of the sky and landing in people's yards with what appears to be a balloon attached to them that I can't help but wonder if they're all floating around on balloons. They've never made the claim that any of these things are floating on balloons, so when they start falling out of the sky and they have balloons attached to them, it starts to feel like we're being gaslit. They're just saying, don't look at these videos that clearly show we're using balloons. Instead, look at this obvious CGI that we're showing you of it in action. Believe NASA, not your neighbor.
Right here, this, whatever this is, this right here, we think it's air. But I realized that if I stop, close my nose and mouth for 4 minutes, if I'm separated from this substance for 4 minutes, my heart don't stop. My brain don't even stop. My body functions don't stop. The first thing I lose is consciousness. I pass out. I can no longer stay aware. So I started to say, well, wait a minute. I'm not just breathing in air. I'm breathing in consciousness. I'm inhaling and exhaling God itself. And this air is conscious.
I think this is an interesting idea, but what about whenever you're using filtered oxygen? Like, what about the guys that are using scuba gear to dive underwater? Or these teams of underwater welders that work for weeks at a time in a pressurized, controlled underwater environment? They're using filtered oxygen, and you would assume that if oxygen has consciousness in it, that us altering it in any way would likely lead to some sensory altering effects. This would explain how we all seem to be connected, though. It would also explain how astral projection is possible. It really does kind of make sense that consciousness is just the atmosphere and we're all tapping into it. Maybe consciousness is in oxygen itself, so no matter what we do to alter it, it's still contained within. I don't know what I think about this one yet, but it is a very fascinating idea. What are y'all's thoughts?
So according to CNN, apparently there's this huge mile-wide volcano under the West Coast Ocean that is supposed to be erupting sometime soon. Not only is it going to be erupting soon, but CNN is saying that it will cause at least 10,000 earthquakes along the coast. This is concerning the west coast of California, where the San Andreas Fault is.
But one of my very dear friends, who I've kind of talked about on here before, he works with seismic activity, but he reached out to me about 2 weeks ago and was like, hey, my team and I have been tracking some seismic activity, and I think you should talk to your TikTok followers about this. What I'm about to tell you is showing up on the news, like CNN, and also news reports out of London and Australia and all over the entire world, that in the coming months, there's predicted a mile-wide volcano that is in the Pacific Ocean that is expected to go off in the next coming months. Now, when he reached out to me, they have predicted it's going to be on June 5th. And this volcano that is potentially about to erupt will trigger over 10,000 earthquakes all over the entire globe in one day.
I looked this up, and while it is absolutely true that this is being reported on, and they are even openly warning people that this could trigger as much as 10,000 earthquakes in a 24-hour period, but the reason that they have the confidence to make a prediction like that is because this has already happened once before. During the last eruption of the Axial Seamount, which is an underwater volcano off the coast of Oregon, there were approximately 10,000 earthquakes recorded in the following 24 hours. But that was in April of 2015, and I don't remember 2015 as being the year of widespread earthquake damage. So I don't really feel like this is something to be that worried about. It sounds like the vast majority of what they're predicting to happen is just going to feel like a slight rumble under our feet. I think this is just being hyped to scare people. Hey, don't forget to click like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at barry-stepp.com.
Monsters captured on camera at Canadian lakes. Wild animals, domesticated animals, and people are attracted to water sources such as lakes, rivers, and creeks for many reasons. Most of all, for a drink of water and the food sources that grow near these places and the game it attracts. Bigfoot and other undocumented species are often seen near water sources, like this creature at Limestone Lake in Manitoba. It was watching this couple taking photos before they got back into their canoe and paddled away. Here is an Ontario Sasquatch captured briefly on video at an undisclosed lake. Some believe it may be injured and so it would not be on top of its game, perhaps creating the perfect scenario where it can be captured on camera. This next lake monster is interesting. For many years, people claimed to see some kind of a water monster swimming in Ogopogo Lake in British Columbia. Recently, a British Columbia couple captured this amazing creature before it dives down into the dark depths of the lake. Perhaps the very creature many have claimed to have spotted or encountered over the years. This has been an amazing year for lake monster sightings, Bigfoot sightings, photos, videos, and vocalizations coming out of Canada.
I put this clip in here for that last photo that he showed of whatever that thing was that looked like it was about to stick its head up out of the water. What do y'all think that was? I took a photo and zoomed in on it, and it kind of looks like a statue of a lion wearing a crown or something. I was thinking though, if that's just some object that they placed under the water, the horn-looking part that's sticking out of the water almost looks manufactured. I wonder if this is just a statue or a Halloween mask or something that someone may be able to recognize by looking at that particular detail. What do y'all think this is?
Okay, what we have here is a standard AC6H non-contact AC voltage detector. Now what this thing does is tell you where electricity is. For example, this wire is dead. There's no electricity because I had the switch off. If I turn the switch on, it now says there's electricity. See how that works? For instance, these wires are hot going to it. Now, the cool thing about this is it'll pick up any voltage. Anything between, let's see, this one is actually 50 volts to 1,000 volts, and category 4, 1,000 volts. So, here's the weird thing I'd like to show you. What's up there? I'm not doing anything to it, guys. Kind of weird.
I feel like the fact that we're not tapped into this energy yet that's just floating overhead, I feel like that's all the evidence I need to prove to me that the government is shelving advancements in technology. If a random man with a voltmeter can make this discovery by accident and immediately comes to the conclusion that we need to try to figure out how to tap into this electricity, there's absolutely no chance that it hasn't been previously discovered, heavily researched, and probably already figured out. They just don't want us to have access to it.
Okay, get in here, America. Check out this new discovery of indigenous tribes up in the Antarctica. Oh, wait.
Have y'all heard of the Bashenga tribe? Pictures of the Bashenga people along with leaked CIA documents have been circulating in the dark web. This is super weird. It's said that this tribe was taken from West Africa to Antarctica as part of an experiment to see if melanated people could survive in the cold. But it gets really dark because the population of the tribe was reportedly ended after an anthropologist accidentally brought smallpox to the community. What's really strange is that there are pictures of artifacts and very tall wooden structures. Where did they get the wood from? Were there trees in Antarctica? Over time, the Bashenga people were claimed to have adapted to the cold in strange and amazing ways. They were happy to swim in the freezing sea and wore very little clothing, thriving in conditions that should have been impossible for them to endure. Researchers were apparently baffled by this, unable to understand how these adaptations were possible and unable to understand the language. The reports also describe a strange event involving the Bashenga people drinking a strange brown liquid and hallucinating, but there are no further details.
First of all, anytime somebody says they got something off the dark web, my alarm bells start going off. That's everybody's go-to move when they're trying to make it appear that they have top secret information that they got from some secret source. Just say you got it off the dark web. And honestly, that probably convinces a considerable percentage of the people watching the video. One thing I noticed is that in a couple of the photos, these people appear to have too many fingers. So I'm leaning toward this being a bunch of photos created with AI. Though, to be fair, in the majority of the photos, the hands did look normal. I also wonder why they show photos of them dressed in attire that you would expect to see someone wearing if they were living in an environment like Antarctica, but then they can apparently go swimming in the freezing water without injury? That doesn't make any sense. And they weren't just swimming in those photos. They were sitting around on the bank covered in water letting the wind blow on them. If they are that desensitized to the cold, what do they even need those coats for? I don't know about this one. I'm gonna need some better evidence. This just isn't that convincing to me.
The following gentleman was flying on a commercial airline on his way to Toronto. He knew that based on the time of flight, he would see the sunrise while he was in the air. He decided to document it, and what he found was absolutely mind-blowing. Check it out.
A flight from Atlanta to Toronto, and I specifically picked the window seat because I knew I'd get a chance to see a sunrise. As you can see, I'm looking very touristy with my P900, but what I recorded was 100% proof that the sun is not 93 million miles away, so check it out. So here's the video I took. As you can see, the sun is about to start rising, and it's not even past the horizon. You can see the horizon in the background, and the sun is going to start rising through that thick layer of clouds right there. Now, if the sun is 93 million miles away, it would be rising at the horizon, not in the middle of the clouds right there. So I was at about 34,000 feet when I was recording this with my P900, and I don't see how that is possible if the sun is 93 million miles away.
This is the original video right here, with only 634 views. Let's see what happens when I click on it. His account has been terminated. The owners of YouTube, they don't want you to have this information.
Don't pay attention to the sun having clouds in the front and having clouds in the back. Don't pay attention to that. It's a mirage.
It's a mirage.
Those clouds that you see going behind the sun is your imagination. It's not really there. Same with the moon. And there's clouds in front of the moon, and then all of a sudden there's some clouds going behind the moon, and you can see it. Don't look at that. That is not true. That's a mirage. It's your imagination. You're seeing things. The camera is lying to you. The telescope is lying to you. Because the moon is 237,000 miles away, and the sun is 93 million miles away.
I think this is the single biggest head scratcher in regards to flat earth theory. That, coupled with the fact that the moon lights up the clouds it's closest to brighter than the ones that's further away from it, even though they all should be receiving the same amount of light from the same distance away. I've seen the clouds going behind the moon before and thought, how is that possible? But then I've never been able to track down an answer that makes sense. Even if you ask Grok, the only explanation it gives you really is, oh, it's an optical illusion, your eyes are lying to you. It literally tells you don't believe your own eyes whenever you ask it to explain. I can't help but find that suspicious.
My brother Jay-Z, Team Rock, Adam Blackstone, Hell's Kitchen, the Most High.
Good evening, godless sodomites. Kneel before your God, Babylon! Making me the highest paid megalomaniacal boy king in all of Babylon!
You see, if you go and visit the very home of the Oscars, where they hold it each year, you can see a plaque on the wall that says the Babylonian Court. The camera shows you the stage, and you see an unmistakable Tower of Babel embedded into the design. Outside of the Kodak Theater, you have the gates to Ishtar, and you have Babylonian gods put on the outside of the gates. They have the exact elephants. They have the same exact gate of Ishtar. They have the same exact Babylonian gods over the top of the gates.
A lot of people come up here and they thank Jesus for this award. I want you to know that no one had less to do with this award than Jesus. He didn't help me a bit. So all I can say is, suck it, this award is my God now.
I'm thankful to the Oscar gods.
The other names of the gentlemen are all gods as far as the category concerned?
When you get this little golden statue, you become a star. In the Egyptian culture, they also had a little statue that represented the god Ptah. And see, when an Egyptian king died, it was believed that his spirit went into the belt of Orion, and he then became a star. Up until 1999, the Oscars was held at a building called the Shrine, which was founded by William Florence and Walter Fleming, two high-ranking Scottish Rite Freemasons. Hollywood has long been interested in Freemasonry. Gene Autry, John Wayne, Nat King Cole, Duke Ellington, C.C. DeMille, Clark Gable, Walt Disney, Oliver Hardy, you name it, the list goes on. Many celebrities have come out and admitted their connection to Freemasonry. You can see the checkered floor. You can see the archways. You can see the sun motif in the background. All of these are letting you know exactly who owns this organization.
I've wondered for a really long time why we seem to have so many people who are openly fighting on the side of the bad guys, publicly attempting to lead the world astray. And it's always perplexed me why these people who clearly believe in the existence of the God of the Bible, otherwise they wouldn't be so clearly obsessed with Satan, who's also from the Bible, why do they intentionally choose to be on the side that's destined to lose? But I think I may have finally figured it out. I have a theory that I'm going to be talking about at the end of today's video, and I think this theory may tie together significantly more than half of all of the theories that we discuss on this channel daily. Pangea, Tartaria, the aliens, even the change in the air that everyone's been talking about lately. I think it may all be connected. There is a ton of evidence that would suggest that there has been one great lie leveled against mankind, one great deception that has led us all into the abyss, so to speak. After today's last clip, which is coming up next, using this as a launching point, we will be discussing that idea. In less than 20 seconds, the cat's out of the bag. You're going to know what the theory is. If this idea is new to you, I only ask that you listen fully to the entire theory before you write it off. Even if, after hearing all the details, you still walk away thinking that this idea is absurd, at the very least, listen to the evidence that supports the theory before you make your mind up. There's a reason that I think all roads may lead to this. The evidence is overwhelming.
Could we be living in Satan's little season? This is a rabbit hole that's been living rent-free in my head for weeks now, and congratulations. It's going to live rent-free in your head now too. Satan's little season is the concept that we are not living in the Armageddon in Revelations, as it states in the Bible, but we are living in the time after that has already happened. Let's just get into it. So this is all based on this verse from Revelation 20. And he lay hold of the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed for a little season. So that's the verse that I'm referencing right now when I talk about this. A lot of Christians have been indoctrinated to believe that Revelations is happening, and we're seeing all these things play out. I'm sure you've come across very prominent accounts on these apps of people declaring and knowing for a fact that we are in the end times. However, this is where it gets really juicy. What if we are not living in the end times, but the end times has already happened? Everyone getting whisked away in the clouds and Jesus coming back to reign for 1,000 years. I could go into this because I've dived deep. So let's look at this timeline for just a moment, okay? He told his disciples that he was going to come back. Every single verse that he's talking about this in the Bible, he's talking about right now, the immediate. He's not talking about in the future. He's saying, your generation will come to see this. Not ours. Theirs. Everything that everyone is thinking was this old world, old ancient technology, ancient old world buildings and things like that. That is actually, in this theory, all a part of Jesus's 1,000-year reign that took place. I've got something even further to explain this too. I'm sure you might have come across videos talking about how the timelines have been screwed up and that we have added anywhere from 700 to 1,000 years to our calendars that doesn't actually exist. When you look at the old world buildings, a lot of times it won't say founded in 1907, it'll say J907. So essentially what's happened is the J got turned into a 1, which would essentially add 1,000 years to our calendar. Boom! You've got Yeshua's 1,000-year reign right there. So that would mean that we are currently living in Satan's little season. Let's see, is there anything that would back up this theory that we are living in Satan's little season? We need to look no further than our political systems. We need to look no further than our media. We need to look no further than the way that the enemy, if you will, Satan, the adversary, is being blatantly thrown out there as if we should be worshiping them just like the celebrities are. We can't deny that fact, right? Another thing to look at is the lies and the deception that we've been living through for a few hundred years now. Another thing to look at is how there seems to be some type of nefarious underlying thing, right? That's going on in the world with the leaders, with the global elites, with the people who are running these countries. They actually have nefarious intentions, not just with all of us as a population who are all slaves, by the way, all of us, every single one of us right now are slaves to the system. We were never meant to live like this. And I think that the more and more people's consciousness is coming online onto the grid of understanding that we are collective consciousness. We do share a lot of the same thoughts about this world and what is good and what is bad. And that's a whole other discussion, right? But there are things that are intrinsically good that we know and things that are intrinsically bad that we know not to do, right? That all would make a lot of sense if we were living in Satan's little season. I don't know, you guys. Every single thing that I look into, as far as this is concerned, has been proven to fit the mold of this theory. And I find it fascinating because not only is this whole idea of revelations and Jesus coming back, this is all very new age. It's a new age Christianity, which is hilarious. He already came back. He already came back. So what does that mean for Christians? They're waiting for the return of Christ. You still are. He's going to come back after Satan's little reign. It has a time limit on it. It will expire.
If you've watched this channel for a while, then you're probably aware of the fact that looking at these conspiracy theories every day eventually led me away from a life of self-service and into the loving arms of Jesus. When I first started making these videos, I was not a believer. As ashamed as I am to admit it, I thought I was too smart to believe in any God. I thought I was intelligent because I listened to what science says and took no other perspective into account. Coming to the realization that a lot of our celebrities, our politicians, and even some of our major religious leaders are all clearly in allegiance to the devil of the Bible. I couldn't help but wonder if there was more to the story than I was being told. Why do they seem to believe to the degree that they're openly worshiping Satan to get earthly rewards? And they must be receiving those rewards, or they would have stopped with this weird symbolism and ritualistic practices and stuff centuries ago. And if Satan is real, according to the gatekeepers of all the world's knowledge, that made me stop and take a second look. Then I discovered all of the historical references proving the existence of Christ outside of the Bible. I had no idea that stuff existed. This has been the single greatest result of me starting this YouTube channel. Looking into this stuff has literally saved my soul. I say all of that to let you know where I stand in my faith, because I feel like that's important for context. In my eyes, Jesus truly was the Son of God, and every word he spoke I believe to be the very definition of the word truth. That being said, I bring you to our first piece of evidence. The words of Jesus throughout the Gospels are clearly indicating that he will be back during their generation. He says repeatedly that the day of his return is at hand. In Mark 9:1 it says, "And he said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that there be some of them that stand here, which shall not taste of death, till they have seen the kingdom of God come with power." Jesus literally told them that he would be back to collect his flock before some of the people in the crowd even tasted of death. That's all the evidence I need. Jesus doesn't lie. Now, I want to make it very clear that I didn't just stumble upon this theory on my own and put all this together. I had an inconsistency in my beliefs pointed out to me, and then I read a book that broke this theory down in great detail using Bible passages and historical events to back up the claim. You can get that book off of Amazon for $5, and it's only 50 pages long. It's a quick read, but it's going to take you a while to get through it, because if you're like me, you're going to end up stopping 2 or 3 times per page flip to look something up. For only 50 pages long, this book is dense with evidence. The book is called The Return of Jesus and Where We Are Now on the Biblical Timeline. Jesus Kept His Word. I've linked this book in the description of today's video. It is not an affiliate link. I don't make any money if you click on it. I just want as many people as possible to get their hands on this book. Now, as I said earlier, I think this is connected to the vast majority of all of these things that we look at in one way or another. I'm going to go through a really quick list of things that I think could be explained by this if it were true, and really think about not only how it seems like this ties so many things together, but that there really isn't anything else that could explain so much of what we're trying to understand. I think, according to evidence, Christ may have already returned and fulfilled the prophecy spoken of in Revelation. Upon his return, the earth would have suffered from a massive landscape-altering event. In the description that you read in Revelation that talks about the impact on the earth during Christ's return, It sounds like it's already happened. The evidence would indicate it's already taken place. I think that explains the idea of Pangea. Perhaps all of our continents were connected during biblical times, and when Christ returned, it split that continent into multiple pieces and scattered them around the earth. This would explain why we have mountains that look like melted palaces literally all over the earth. It would explain the 1,000 years of history that they claim are shaky at best from the Dark Ages. It would explain the origins of these aliens that they claim to be in contact with. Those are just fallen angels or demons let loose on the world to do Satan's dirty work. And to my understanding, the purpose of Satan's little season is to allow him time to build up his army to try to fight against Christ. He's preparing for the real final end time battle, the real world war. And what are they trying to do right now? They're trying to convince the world that we're under threat of attack by an alien species, that the world will likely have to join forces to overcome it. They are literally prepping the population for a war against an unknown enemy. This all just lines up too well. Then look at the symbolism of the Statue of Liberty, looking like it was copied straight from the likeness of one of the most famous paintings of Lucifer, with a broken chain around its ankle, in my opinion, symbolizing the release of Lucifer so that he can kick off his little season. It looks like they're putting it right in front of our faces, mocking us, knowing they're keeping us ignorant to the truth. I think the people in charge know this is going on, and they know that the best way to deceive the masses is to convince everyone that we're living in the days before the return of Jesus. If that's the timeline we're living in, that makes a lot of what Jesus said sound like false promises. There would be no better way to sow doubt into the population and get them to lose their faith. Jesus says repeatedly that he's coming back to gather his followers in the generation that he's speaking to. I can't help but to see it this way. You either believe Jesus was telling the truth, or you believe another man's interpretations explaining away how Jesus misspoke. The God that I believe in is perfect and doesn't lie. I believe Jesus was telling the truth. So what does this mean then? What does this change if this really is the reality that we're living in? I think that if this is true, the only thing knowing it actually changes is just your perspective on the world. It's really just an eye-opener. We're still waiting for the return of Christ. We just may be further down the biblical timeline than we initially thought. When I first came across this idea and started researching it, it made sense to me right away. The more scripture I read backing up this idea, the more my mind was flooded with thoughts like the mud flood. So many things could be explained by this idea. Look at Tartaria, for example. This could explain why all the tales that we hear of the Tartarians that are still surviving, they're talked about as if they're highly intelligent and very spiritually enlightened. Maybe they were literally ruled by Christ during his millennial reign. I know that this idea is going to sound very shocking to a lot of people, and some may even see it as an idea that shouldn't even be discussed. But consider this point. If Jesus has already returned, there would be a record of that somewhere. The people in control of this planet would have access to that information. The majority of our world leaders are clearly self-serving Satanists. Why would they allow the world to have proof of God? They want us to worship the same thing that they're worshiping. They would do everything in their power to control the release of that information. And if you think they wouldn't hide that information from us or try to deceive us, just look at all the video footage that's available showing what actually happened to cause those buildings to fall on September 11th. Yet, the official narrative can only be believed if you don't have access to those videos. There's always an agenda. There's always a narrative. And there's always an end goal of power and wealth being strived for. These people care nothing about truth, but about what they can get for themselves in this life, regardless of what it costs them in the next. Now, I know a lot of you have been waiting for me to touch on this topic, and to a lot of you, this may be the first time that you've heard this idea. And while I do have a lot more that I would love to say about this, probably enough to talk all day, I mainly wanted to get the idea out there to get everybody familiar with it, get everybody researching and see if we can actually pin down some evidence to tell us what timeline we're actually living in, and perhaps find out for certain if we're being deceived in this regard. Now, I really would like to sit here and go through every single little detail that I think backs up this theory, but I don't know how to go about that without sounding preachy. And the point of this topic being discussed is not for me to convert anyone. To my understanding, I don't have the capabilities anyways. All I can do is openly proclaim my love for Jesus so that all ears hear his name, and God will make those movements in the people he chooses to do work in. Now, Before I end the video, I would like to say thank you to everyone. This is video number 400 today. I'm kind of surprised at myself that I stuck to this for so long. It's just been an absolute blast doing this. I love every aspect of it, and I cannot tell you all how much I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to spend 25 to 30 minutes 4 or 5 times a week sitting and discussing conspiracy theories with me. Thank you sincerely. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. Thank you for purchasing my shirts and hats on my website. Thank you all for your amazingly positive comments that just always make my day feel better. And most importantly, thank you to everyone who prayed on my behalf when I was publicly lost and without purpose. And I have to point this out. When I didn't believe, I wasn't met with animosity or judgment from the Christian community, but with love. After nearly every video, and you can go back and check this yourself, it's not hidden. After nearly every video, you can sit and read comments for half an hour of people telling me that they're praying for me, that they loved me, that they were worried for my soul, and that it was their desire for me to find the truth. I could really feel the love and the sincerity in a lot of those comments. I have been moved by many of you, and I cannot thank you enough for the love that you've all shown me. I only hope that I can repay the favor, being as honest and open about my thoughts and feelings as I can be, to remain as authentic as I possibly can in the hopes that someday, in some way, all of you will feel the love that I'm trying to send back your way. But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I'll be back soon with another video. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at barry-stepp.com. And don't forget to leave a photo of your merch over in the Discord to get your photo in a video. But guys and gals, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next one.